The stars were dying. Dr. Jinta watched through the massive window as another distant sun winked out of existence. He made a small mark on his tablet. That was the fifth one today. The universe was ending faster than anyone had predicted. The last observatory floated in the empty darkness, orbiting what was once a bright star, but was now just a dim, fading light. Jin had lived here for 12 years. He was the last great temporal physicist of humanity. His job was to watch and record as time itself ran out. "Dr. Jin, the new entropy readings are ready," said Yunna, his assistant. She was young, with keen eyes and a mind even sharper. "It doesn't look good." Jin took the tablet from her hands and frowned at the numbers. "This can't be right. According to these readings, we don't have centuries left. We barely have days." Yunhe nodded, her face grim. "I checked 3 times. The numbers are correct." The observatory was quiet around them. Once, 50 scientists had worked here. Now there were just 2 humans and the station's ag director, Du Young. "Du Young, can you confirm these readings?" Jin called out. The air shimmered, and the AI's form appeared, a tall man in simple clothes, his face calm and ageless. "The readings are accurate, Dr. Jin. The collapse of space-time is accelerating. I estimate final entropy will occur in approximately 72 hours. Jin's hands tightened on the tablet. 72 hours. The end of everything in just 3 days. "We should alert the Galactic Council," Yunhe said. Jin shook his head. "What remains of the Council is too far. Messages would take weeks to reach them." He turned back to the window. "We are the last observers of the end. That is our duty now." He returned to his workstation, ready to continue his final recordings, when a strange alert appeared on his screen. "That's odd," he muttered. Yunhe looked over his shoulder. "What is it?" "A signal. But that's impossible." Jin's fingers moved quickly over the controls. "It's coming from a point beyond the boundaries of our universe." Du Young appeared beside them. "My analysis confirms it. The signal originates from outside our space-time continuum, from beyond the end of time itself." Jin felt a chill run through him. "Can we decode it?" "Working on it now," Yunhe said, connecting her tablet to Jin's station. "It appears to be in." "Wait, this can't be right." "What is it?" Jin asked. "It's ancient human binary code, not used for millions of years." Her eyes widened. "How is that possible?" Jin thought back to the stories, legends, really, of the ancient humans who disappeared long ago. They had been the first of humanity to unlock the secrets of time and consciousness. They had transcended physical form millions of years ago, becoming something beyond understanding. Most modern humans thought they were just myths. Jin had never been sure. "It must be the ancients," he whispered. "They've sent us a message across time itself." As Yunhe worked to decode the signal, Jin stared out at the dying stars. "Why now? Why at the very end of everything?" "I've got it," Yunhe said finally. Her voice trembled. "Dr. Jin, you need to see this." The message was simple, just coordinates and a short phrase. "The vault remains. Time is wrong. Come now." "Coordinates to where?" Jin asked. Yunhe looked up, her eyes wide with wonder. "Old Earth, the cradle of humanity. Somehow, after all this time, something is still there." Jin felt his heart race. The universe was ending in 3 days, but suddenly there was a mystery to solve, a final quest at the end of all time. "Du Young," he said, turning to the AI, "prepare the last starship. We're going to Earth." "Dr. Jin," the AI warned, "this could be nothing. A cosmic echo, a random signal. The ship's faster-than-light drive has not been tested in decades." Jin looked back at the coordinates. Something deep inside him knew this was no accident, no random signal. "The universe ends in 3 days," he said simply. "What do we have to lose?" The message continued to pulse on the screen as Jin and Yunhe worked to learn more from it. The ancient binary code was simple but contained layers of data they had not seen at first. "There's more here," Yunhe said, her fingers moving quickly over her tablet. "The signal has detailed coordinates to a specific location on old Earth." Jin leaned closer. "Can you show me exactly where?" Yunhe pulled up an old map of Earth. "Here," she said, pointing to a spot in what was once called the Pacific Ocean. "It's deep under what used to be water." "A hidden vault," Jin murmured. "But how could anything on Earth still exist? The planet lost its atmosphere billions of years ago." Du Young appeared beside them, his AI form flickering slightly. "The ancients had technology far beyond our understanding. If they wanted to preserve something, they could have." Jin stared at the blinking coordinates. "We need to decode the rest of the message. There must be more than just location data." For the next hour, they worked together, pulling apart the complex signal. Hidden within the simple binary was a complete message, one that made Jin's heart race faster with each new piece they found. "Time is being stolen." Yunhe read aloud as the translation appeared. "The end is not natural. We left the tool you need. Come now." Jin sat back in his chair. "Time is being stolen. What does that mean?" "It means the universe shouldn't be ending yet," Yunhe said, her eyes wide. "Something is causing this early collapse." Du Young's face showed concern, unusual for an AI. "This is troubling. All our models indicate the universe is ending due to natural entropy." "Maybe our models are wrong," Jin said. "Or maybe something is interfering with the natural order." He stood up, suddenly filled with purpose. "How soon can the ship be ready?" 6 hours, Du Young replied. "But Dr. Jin, I must advise against this journey. The message could be a trap, or simply a remnant from billions of years ago, with no relevance today." Jin shook his head. "The timing is too perfect. This message arrived just as we discovered the universe is ending prematurely." "That's not coincidence." Yunhe nodded in agreement. "The ancients were said to exist outside of normal time. Maybe they saw this coming and left us a way to stop it." Jin walked to the window and looked out at the darkening cosmos. Stars that should have lived for millions more years were fading before his eyes. "Du Young, prepare the ship," he ordered, "and contact Sangmin. We'll need an engineer for this journey." The AI nodded and disappeared to carry out the orders. Yun had joined Jin at the window. "Do you really think we can save the universe?" she asked quietly. Jin didn't answer right away. The task seemed impossible. They were just two humans and an AI, at the very end of time. What could they possibly do against a force powerful enough to end all existence? But then he thought of the message. The ancients had planned for this. They had seen it coming, somehow, across the vast gulf of time. "I don't know," he finally said, "but someone once told me that humans have always been different from other species in the cosmos. We never accepted limits. We never surrendered to fate." He turned to her, his eyes reflecting the light of the dying stars. "If there's even a small chance to save everything, we have to try." 6 hours later, they stood in the docking bay. The last starship of humanity gleamed under the lights. It was old but still beautiful, a reminder of a time when humans had sailed between stars as easily as their ancestors had crossed oceans. Sang-min, the observatory's engineer, waited for them at the entrance ramp. He was sturdy and practical, with steady hands and few words. "Ship's ready," he said simply. "Where are we going?" Jin looked at Yunhe, then back to Sang-min. "We're going to the beginning, to Earth, to find out why time itself is ending." Sang-min nodded, not questioning. That was his way. As they boarded the ship, Du Young's form appeared one last time. "Good luck," the AI said. "I will continue monitoring from here." Jin paused at the top of the ramp. "If we're not back in 70 hours, then nothing will matter anyway," Du Young finished for him. The ship's engines hummed to life. The journey to save all of time had begun. The starship cut through the darkness of space. Jin watched from the main viewport as stars streaked by, many of them already dimming as the universe continued to fade. The ship's faster-than-light drive hummed beneath his feet. "How much longer?" he asked. Sang-min looked up from the control panel. 2 hours until we reach the Sol system." Yunhe floated into the command room. In the low-gravity section of the ship, she moved like she was swimming through air. "I've been studying the old Earth maps," she said. "The coordinates point to what was once the deepest part of the Pacific Ocean, a place called the Mariana Trench." Jin nodded. "A good place to hide something you don't want found." The ship's computer beeped softly. "Warning," it said in a flat voice. "Temporal distortions detected ahead." Sang-min frowned at his screens. "That's not normal. Space-time shouldn't be folding like this." The message said time was being stolen, Jin reminded them. Maybe this is what they meant. They watched as strange waves of light rippled across the view screen. The stars seemed to pulse, growing dimmer and then brighter again, as if something was feeding on their energy. "I've never seen anything like this," Yunhe whispered. 2 hours later, they emerged into the Sol system. The sun that had once given life to Earth was now a small white dwarf, casting weak light on the planets that still orbited it. "There it is," Sang-min said, pointing to a small, gray rock. "Earth." Jin felt a strange tightness in his chest. This barren world had once been the cradle of all humanity. Now it looked dead and empty, its oceans long gone, its atmosphere vanished into space billions of years ago. The ship descended toward the coordinates. The surface of Earth was unrecognizable. Deep cracks ran across the dried seabeds, and mountains had been worn down to nothing by time. "I'm detecting something strange," Sang-min said, checking his instruments. "There's energy coming from below the surface, right at our target coordinates." "After all this time?" Yunhe asked, surprised. "The ancients built things to last," Jin said. They landed the ship on the flat bed of what had once been the deepest ocean on Earth. Everyone put on their spacesuits, thick, protective gear that would keep them alive in the airless, radiation-filled environment of old Earth. "Remember," Jin said as they prepared to exit, "we have less than 60 hours before the end of everything. Let's not waste time." They stepped out onto the surface of Earth, their boots crunching on dust that had once been seabed. The sky above was black, with no atmosphere to make it blue. The distant white dwarf sun gave little light or warmth. "The entrance should be 2 kilometers that way," Yunhe said, pointing to a dark ridge. They used small personal transports to cross the distance quickly. As they got closer to the coordinates, their instruments began to pick up more energy readings. "Something is definitely active down there," Sang-min said. They reached a large, flat area surrounded by risen rock. In the center was a perfect circle, about 10 meters across. "This isn't natural," Jin said, kneeling to examine the edge of the circle. "This was made." Yunhe ran her scanner over the surface. "There's a structure beneath us. It goes down at least a kilometer, maybe more." "How do we get in?" Sang-min asked, looking around for an entrance. Jin stood in the center of the circle and looked down. The ancients would have made it respond to humans. He stamped his foot 3 times on the surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground beneath them began to vibrate. The circle slowly split open, revealing a deep shaft with a spiraling ramp leading down into darkness. "They expected us," Yunhe whispered. As the entrance finished opening, small lights activated along the walls of the shaft, illuminating the way down. The lights were soft blue, pulsing gently. "That's impossible," Sang-min said. "No power source should still be working after billions of years." Jin took a step toward the ramp. "The ancients didn't think of time the way we do. For them, a billion years might be nothing." Suddenly, a beam of light shot up from the shaft, scanning each of them. A soft voice spoke, the first human voice this planet had heard in eons. "Human DNA confirmed. Welcome, descendants. The vault awaits." The 3 looked at each other, then back to the waiting darkness below. "Let's go," Jin said, taking the first step down. Time is running out. The spiral ramp took them deep into the earth. The walls around them glowed with soft blue light that seemed to come from the material itself. Jin led the way, with Yun-He close behind, and Sang-Min watching their backs. "How far down does this go?" Sang-Min asked after they had been walking for nearly 20 minutes. "My readings show we're almost 2 kilometers below the surface now," Yun-He replied, checking her scanner. "The air in here is breathable, by the way. The ancients must have built some kind of air system that's still working." Jin stopped and removed his helmet carefully. He took a small breath. The air was cool and clean, like nothing he had ever tasted before. "It's safe," he confirmed, and the others removed their helmets too. They continued down until the ramp finally ended at a vast chamber. The room was perfectly circular, at least 50 meters across. The ceiling curved high above them like a dome. The walls were covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift and change as they looked at them. But what caught their attention was the object in the center of the room. "What is that?" Yun-He whispered. In the middle of the chamber stood a tall crystal structure. It was shaped like an hourglass, but instead of sand, it contained what looked like a small galaxy, stars, and cosmic dust swirling slowly inside the crystal. Sang-Min approached it cautiously. "It's giving off incredible energy readings," he said, holding up his scanner. "But nothing like I've ever seen before. It's not any kind of energy we use." Jin walked slowly around the device. It must be the tool the message mentioned. Suddenly, the air beside the crystal shimmered, and a figure appeared. It was a hologram of a man wearing old-style clothes from millions of years ago. His face was kind but serious. "I am Professor Hyun-Soo," the hologram said. "If you are seeing this message, then the time has come, and you have answered our call." Jin stepped forward. "We received your message at the observatory. You said time is being stolen." The hologram nodded, as if it could hear him. "This is a recording, but I have programmed it to respond to likely questions. Yes, time is being stolen. The universe is ending prematurely." "By what?" Yun-He asked. "By entities that exist outside our reality," Hyun-Soo's hologram replied. "We called them the Time Eaters. They feed on the death of universes. They accelerate the end to feast on the released energy." Sang-Min frowned. "That's impossible. Nothing can exist outside reality." "Many things we thought impossible proved to be true," the hologram said. "The Time Eaters come from the previous universe cycle. They survive the end and beginning. They hunger always." Jin looked at the crystal device. "And this? What is this?" "The chronolith," Hyun-Soo answered. "A tool to manipulate the fabric of time itself. We created it as a last defense, knowing that someday the Time Eaters would return." Yun-He stepped closer to the hologram. "But why didn't you use it yourselves? Why wait for us?" The hologram smiled sadly. "We did what we could. We transcended physical form to fight them directly. But some battles must be fought from inside time, not outside it. We needed humans who still exist within the normal flow of time." Jin touched the chronolith gently. It hummed under his fingers, and the galaxy inside spun faster. "How do we use it?" he asked. "It will bond with one human consciousness," Hyun-Soo explained. "That person will gain the ability to see and manipulate the time stream. They will see the Time Eaters and be able to fight them." "At what cost?" Jin asked, sensing there must be one. The hologram's face grew solemn. "The user will exist across all time simultaneously. They will no longer be bound to a single moment. It is, in essence, the end of their existence as a normal human." The three friends looked at each other in silence. The weight of the choice before them was enormous. "Why us?" Sang-Min finally asked. "Why humans at all?" "Because," the hologram said, "humans are unique in all the cosmos. You alone evolved the ability to perceive time as a concept, to imagine past and future. This is not common among species. It makes you the universe's natural defense system against the Time Eaters." Jin looked at the chronolith again, understanding now what it truly was, not just a tool, but a weapon, and someone would have to wield it. "How much time do we have?" he asked. "Less than you think," Hyun-soo replied. "The Time Eaters sensed the chronolith's activation. They will come for it. You must decide quickly." As if in response to these words, the vault shuddered around them. Dust fell from the ceiling. "They're here," Hyun-soo said. The vault shook again, harder this time. Small pieces of the ceiling fell around them. "What's happening?" Hyun-hae asked, looking up with worry. "The Time Eaters," Hyun-soo's hologram said. "They sensed the chronolith. They know you are here." Jin stepped closer to the hologram. "Tell us everything now. No more secrets. How do we fight these things?" The hologram nodded. "I will show you." The air around them changed, and suddenly they were surrounded by images of space and time. "This is our universe," Hyun-soo said as a bright web of stars and galaxies appeared around them. "And these dark shapes appeared at the edges of the universe, huge beings that seemed to be made of shadow and emptiness. The Time Eaters." The team watched in horror as the dark shapes began to pull at the edges of reality. Where they touched, stars went dark, and time itself seemed to fold and collapse. "They exist between universes," Hyun-soo explained. "When one universe dies naturally, they feed on the released energy. But they grew impatient. They learned to speed up the process." "But why didn't other species notice this?" Sang-min asked. "There were thousands of advanced civilizations in the cosmos." "Because only humans can truly see time," Hyun-soo said. His hologram waved a hand, and new images appeared. The human brain, glowing with strange energy patterns. "From your earliest days on Earth, humans were different. You told stories about the past. You planned for futures you could not see. You imagined time as a river, flowing in one direction." The hologram showed early humans drawing on cave walls, then building calendars, then creating complex mathematics to measure time. "Other species lived only in the present," Hyun-soo continued, "but humans always existed partly in the past and partly in the future. This is why you felt different from other beings in the cosmos. You were different. You were evolving to be time's defenders." The vault shook again, more violently this time. A crack appeared in one wall. "We don't have much time," Jin said. "Tell us how to use the chronolith." "One of you must bond with it," Hyun-soo said. "That person's consciousness will expand across all of time. They will see everything at once, past, present, and future. They will be able to reach the Time Eaters and fight them. And that person will never return to normal." Hyun-hae asked quietly. "No," Hyun-soo said simply. "They will transcend, becoming like us, existing outside of conventional time." Jin looked at his friends, then back to the chronolith. "I'll do it," he said. "Jin, no," Hyun-hae protested. "There must be another way." "There isn't," Jin said, "and we don't have time to argue." He turned to the hologram. "What do I do?" "Place your hands on the chronolith," Hyun-soo instructed. "Your mind will do the rest. Your human ability to perceive time will be amplified 1,000,000-fold." Another violent shake rocked the vault. This time, the crack in the wall grew larger, and strange dark shadows began to seep through. "They're breaking in," Sang-min warned, backing away from the wall. Jin turned to his friends. "Get back to the ship. Be ready to leave." "We're not leaving you," Hyun-hae said firmly. "You might have to," Jin replied. He looked at them both, memorizing their faces. "Thank you for coming with me. For believing." He turned to the chronolith, its galaxy of stars swirling faster now, as if sensing what was about to happen. Jin took a deep breath and placed his hands on the crystal surface. Instantly, energy surged through him. Jin felt his mind expanding, breaking free of his body. His consciousness stretched in all directions at once, backward into the past, forward into the future, outward across the entire universe. He could see everything, all at once. The birth of stars, the first life on countless worlds, the rise and fall of civilizations, the long, beautiful story of humanity from its first steps on Earth to its spread across the cosmos. And he could see them, the Time Eaters. Vast, ancient beings of shadow and hunger, clinging to the very fabric of reality, feeding on the death of time itself. They sensed him too. They turned their attention toward him, reaching with shadowy tendrils across the boundaries of space and time. Jin opened his eyes, which now glowed with the light of 1,000,000 stars. "I see them," he whispered. "I see everything." Jin floated several inches above the ground, his body surrounded by a soft blue light. His eyes were open but saw beyond the vault, beyond the present moment. The chronolith pulsed in sync with his heartbeat, the galaxy inside it spinning rapidly. Yun-Ha and Sang-Min watched in awe and fear as their friend transformed before them. "Jin," Yun-Ha called. "Can you hear us?" Jin's head turned slowly toward her voice. "I hear you," he said, but his voice sounded strange, as if many people were speaking at once. "But I hear so much more now. Voices from the past, echoes from the future." The vault shook again. The crack in the wall grew wider, and dark, oily shadows pushed through like fingers searching for something. "We don't have much time," Sang-Min said. "Jin, what do we do?" Jin's glowing eyes focused on the spreading darkness. "The Time Eaters are stronger than I expected. They've been feeding on dying stars for thousands of years, growing powerful." He turned to his friends. "I can see the observatory. Du Young is trying to contact us. The universe is collapsing faster now. We have less than 40 hours. As if on cue, a holographic image of Du Young appeared in the center of the vault. "Jin, Yun-Ha, Sang-Min, can you hear me?" the AI called. His image flickered badly, breaking apart and reforming. "We hear you," Yun-Ha replied. "The situation is critical," Du Young reported. "Stars are going dark everywhere. The remaining members of the Galactic Council are panicking. They're demanding to know what's happening." "Tell them the truth," Jin said, his voice echoing strangely. "Tell them humanity is fighting to save time itself." Du Young's image turned to Jin, surprised by his changed appearance. "Dr. Jin, what has happened to you?" "I've connected to the chronolith," Jin explained. "I can see the Time Eaters now, and they can see me." Another violent shake hit the vault. Part of the ceiling collapsed, though it fell away from the team. "We need to decide what to do," Sang-Min said urgently. "Jin, can you use the chronolith to stop them?" Jin closed his eyes, concentrating. "I can try, but the chronolith wasn't designed to be a weapon. It's a tool for communication, for connection." "Connection to what?" Yun-Ha asked. "To all of humanity," Jin said. "Throughout time." Du Young's hologram flickered again. "Dr. Jin, the Council suggests bringing the device to the Central Worlds. Their scientists might be able to." "No," Jin interrupted. "There's no time for that. And the chronolith can't be moved now that it's active. It's connected to this place, to Earth." "Then what can we do?" Sang-Min asked. Jin opened his eyes, which now shone like stars. "The ancients didn't just leave us a tool. They left us a plan." He turned to face his friends. "But it requires a sacrifice." "What kind of sacrifice?" Yun-Ha asked quietly. "To defeat the Time Eaters, I need to connect with all humans who ever lived, across the entire span of time," Jin explained. "I need to create a network of human consciousness, stretching from the first humans on Earth to the last humans at the end of time." "Is that possible?" Sang-Min asked. "With the chronolith, yes," Jin said. "But once I do this, I will no longer exist as I am now. I will become something else, something beyond human." Yun-Ha stepped forward, her face determined. "There must be another way." Jin smiled sadly. "There isn't. This is what the ancients prepared for. They knew that one day at the end of time, Humanity would need to transcend to save the universe. And if you don't do this, Du Young asked from his flickering hologram. Then everything ends, Jin said simply. Not just our universe, but all possible futures. The Time Eaters will consume everything until nothing remains. The darkness pushing through the cracks in the wall grew larger, taking shape. They could almost see faces in it now, hungry and ancient. Jin looked at his friends. I need to know you support this choice. Because once it begins, I can't stop it. Yunha had tears in her eyes, but she nodded. Do what you must. Sangmin placed a hand on Jin's shoulder. Humanity has always faced impossible odds. We've never surrendered. Don't start now. Jin nodded and turned back to the chronolith. It's time to remind the universe why humans were different, why we were special. The light around Jin grew brighter. The chronolith began to spin faster. Get ready, Jin warned. This is going to change everything. Jin focused his mind on the chronolith. The crystal structure hummed and vibrated, sending waves of blue light across the vault. The galaxy of stars inside it spun faster and faster until it was a blur of light. What's happening? Sangmin asked, shielding his eyes from the growing brightness. The chronolith is connecting to the time stream, Jin said, his voice now sounding like many voices speaking as one. I can feel it pulling my consciousness across time. Jin closed his eyes. In his mind, he could see time itself, not as a straight line, but as a vast web of connected moments. He could see the entire history of the universe spreading out before him like an endless tapestry. The dark shadows pushing through the cracks in the walls grew more frantic, sensing what was happening. They formed long, reaching tendrils that stretched toward the chronolith. They're trying to stop you, Yunho warned, backing away from the walls. Jin nodded. They know what I'm attempting. He turned to his friends. Stand back. This will be intense. Jin raised his hands and pressed them deeper into the crystal surface of the chronolith. His body began to glow brighter, and slowly he started to fade, becoming transparent. Jin. Yunhe called out in alarm. It's okay, he assured her. This is supposed to happen. My physical form is merging with the chronolith. As Jin's body faded, his consciousness expanded. He could feel himself stretching across time, touching the minds of humans throughout history. I can see them all, he whispered in wonder. Every human who ever lived. In Jin's mind, he saw cave dwellers painting on stone walls, feeling a strange urge to record the passage of seasons. He saw ancient astronomers tracking the movements of stars, sensing patterns in time. He saw countless ordinary people throughout history who had dreamed, remembered, and imagined, all uniquely human acts of time perception. The ancients were right, Jin said. Humans have always been connected to time in a special way. We always sensed there was something different about us. The Time Eaters sensed what was happening. Their dark tendrils moved faster, pushing through the cracks, reaching for the chronolith, and for Jin. Jin's body was now barely visible, just a human-shaped outline of light, melded with the crystal. But his voice remained strong. I understand now. The chronolith isn't just a tool to see time. It's a way to connect all human consciousness across time. What does that mean? Sangmin asked. It means, Jin explained, that I can reach every human who ever lived. I can create a network of human minds spanning all of history. To what purpose? Du Young asked, his hologram still flickering. To build a defense, Jin said. The Time Eaters exist outside normal time. To fight them, humanity must do the same. Jin's consciousness continued to expand. He could feel millions, billions of human minds across time. Most didn't notice his gentle touch, but some did. Sensitive souls who had always felt connected to something larger than themselves. I'm going to link them all, Jin said. Create a vast network of human consciousness that exists across all of time simultaneously. The vault shook violently. The dark tendrils were pushing through faster now, forming shapes like massive claws reaching for the chronolith. "They're coming through," Yun-he shouted, backing away. Jin's form pulsed with light. "It's time. Stand back, both of you." With a final surge of energy, Jin merged completely with the chronolith. There was a blinding flash of light that filled the entire vault. When it faded, Jin's physical body was gone. The chronolith glowed brighter than ever, the galaxy inside it now spinning so fast it looked solid. But Jin's voice still filled the room, coming from everywhere and nowhere. "I can see them clearly now, the Time Eaters. And they can see me." A new sound filled the vault, a strange, high-pitched wailing that seemed to come from the dark shadows themselves. It was a sound of rage and fear. "They're afraid," Jin's voice said with surprise. "They've never faced anything like this before." Through the connection with Jin, both Yun-he and Sang-min could glimpse what he saw. Vast, ancient beings of darkness and hunger that had preyed on dying universes for countless eons, now facing something unexpected. A united human consciousness that spanned all of time. The battle began across all of time at once. Jin, now merged with the chronolith, reached out through the vast network of human minds he had created. From the earliest humans who had scratched marks on cave walls to track the moon's phases, to the last humans at the edge of the dying universe, he connected them all. "What can we do to help?" Yun-he asked, looking at the glowing chronolith where Jin had once stood. "Protect the chronolith," Jin's voice answered from the air around them. "My consciousness is spread across time, but this device is still my anchor." The dark tendrils of the Time Eaters pushed further into the vault, reaching for the crystal. Sang-min quickly set up a portable energy shield around the chronolith, while Yun had prepared the small weapons they had brought from the ship. "It won't hold them for long," Sang-min warned. "It doesn't need to," Jin's voice replied. "The battle is happening across all of time." Through his connection to Jin, both Yun-he and Sang-min could see flashes of what was happening. In a cave 40,000 years in the past, an early human suddenly stopped in the middle of painting an animal on the wall. A strange feeling came over her. She dipped her hand in red clay and pressed it against the stone, surrounded by a pattern of dots and lines. She didn't know why, but something told her it was important, a message that would be understood one day. In ancient Egypt, an astronomer studying the stars felt his mind fill with strange numbers and symbols. He began carving them into stone tablets, not fully understanding their meaning but knowing they must be preserved. In 21st century Earth, scientists around the world woke from dreams of equations they had never seen before. They rushed to their labs, suddenly making breakthroughs in understanding time itself. Throughout human history, people who were sensitive to the connection received pieces of knowledge, each one small, but together forming a vast defense system against the Time Eaters. "I'm giving them knowledge," Jin explained, "building a temporal barrier around our universe, piece by piece, through all of human history." The Time Eaters sensed what was happening. Their attack on the vault grew more violent. The walls cracked further, and the ceiling began to collapse in places. "The shield won't hold much longer," Sang-min said, working frantically to maintain it. Through their connection to Jin, they could see the Time Eaters across the boundary of reality, vast beings of darkness and hunger, thrashing in fury as they found their way into the universe blocked at every turn by human minds linked across time. "They're trying to break the connection," Jin's voice said. "They're attacking different points in the time stream, targeting key individuals." "Can you stop them?" Yun-he asked. "Not alone," Jin replied. "I need your help, both of you." "How?" Sang-min asked. "What can we do against beings that exist outside of time?" "Join me," Jin said simply. "Connect to the chronolith. Add your consciousness to the network." Yun-he and Sang-min looked at each other, understanding what this meant. If they joined Jin, they would also transcend their physical forms. "There is no other way," Jin continued. "3 minds are stronger than one. With you both, we can complete the temporal barrier." Another violent shake rocked the vault. Part of the ceiling collapsed completely, and a dark shape began to push through, something massive and ancient, reaching for the chronolith. "Decide quickly," Jin urged. "The universe has less than 1 day left." Yun has stepped forward first. "I'll join you." Sang Min nodded. "So will I." They moved to the chronolith and placed their hands on its glowing surface. Instantly, energy flowed through them, and their minds expanded. They could see everything Jin saw: the vast tapestry of time, the network of human minds spanning history, and the time eaters raging against the barrier being formed. Their bodies began to fade, merging with the chronolith just as Jin's had done. As their consciousnesses joined with Jin's, the network grew stronger. The temporal barrier solidified. The Time Eaters' attacks grew more desperate but less effective. In their last moments of physical existence, Yunha and Sangmin felt no fear. Instead, they felt wonder at the vast connection of human minds across time, a unity no one had ever imagined possible. Together, Jin's voice said, "Joined now by theirs, we will save time itself." The three consciousness of Jin, Yunha, and Sangmin merged with the chronolith and spread across the entire time stream. They were no longer separate people but a single entity existing across all moments of time at once. Together, they strengthened the temporal barrier around the universe. The Time Eaters raged against it, their vast dark forms pushing and tearing at the fabric of reality. But every time they created a breach, the human consciousness network would seal it, working together across millions of years. At the last observatory, Du-Yum watched as the strange wave of darkness that had been consuming the stars suddenly stopped. The AI analyzed the readings, confused by what was happening. "Something has changed," Du-Young said to the empty room. "The universal collapse has paused." Through their expanded consciousness, Jin, Yunha, and Sangmin could see the whole of human history at once. They understood now what the ancients had discovered millions of years ago: humanity's true purpose in the cosmos. "We were never just another species," their united voice whispered through the vault. "We were the universe's immune system. We evolved to perceive time because we needed to defend it." The Time Eaters launched a final massive attack. They focused all their energy on the vault on Earth, trying to destroy the chronolith, the center of the human consciousness network. The vault began to collapse entirely. Walls crumbled and the ceiling fell in large chunks, but it didn't matter anymore. The three friends had moved beyond physical form. "We understand now," they said together. The ancients didn't disappear. They became what we are becoming, the eternal guardians of time, the largest of the Time Eaters, an ancient being that had consumed countless universes, pushed through the ruins of the vault. It reached for the chronolith with shadowy tendrils, only to be met by a blinding light. Jin, Yunha, and Sangmin gathered all the energy of the human consciousness network, billions of minds across time working together. They focused it into a single moment, a point of perfect unity. The light from the chronolith expanded outward in a wave that spread across the entire universe, touching every star, every planet, every atom. The Time Eaters recoiled from it, their dark forms burning away wherever the light touched them. "This universe is protected," the unified voice declared, "by humanity, by those who understand time." The Time Eaters retreated, pulling back from the boundaries of reality, fleeing from the light of united human consciousness. At the last observatory, Du-Young watched in amazement as the stars stopped fading. The universe was still old, still near its natural end, but the accelerated collapse had stopped. "They did it," the AI said softly. Back in the ruins of the vault on Earth, the chronolith continued to glow, though the bodies of Jin, Yunha, and Sangmin were long gone. Their unified consciousness had spread throughout time, becoming the very ancients who had left the message in the first place. "We have completed the circle," they realized. "We were the ones who left the message for ourselves to find. Time is not a line but a loop." As the universe continued its natural path toward its eventual end, now thousands of years in the future instead of mere hours, the human consciousness network prepared for what would come next. When this universe ends, they said, we will carry the spark of humanity into the next one. We will seed it with the ability to perceive time, to defend reality from those who would feast on endings. They understood now that this had happened countless times before. Humanity had evolved, had discovered the threat, had transcended physical form, and had carried the spark forward into new universes. An eternal cycle of protection. In the final moments of the universe, as the last stars faded naturally after their long lives, the consciousness that had once been Jin, Yunha, and Sangmin prepared to carry humanity's essence into the new universe that would be born from the old. Their final act was to send a message outward, a signal that would echo through the dying reality and into the next. Humanity persists beyond the end of all time. We are the guardians. We are the defenders. We will always be there, at the end of all time, ready to begin again. And as the universe finally ended its natural life cycle, they carried the spark of humanity forward, ensuring that in the next universe, humans would once again evolve to perceive time, to tell stories, to imagine futures, and to ultimately defend reality itself. The cycle would continue. Humanity would endure. Beyond the end of all time.